Hey everybody, welcome back to the Spinner Rack. This is Mars here, and I'm here with my boys, PD and Cal. Say what's up, gents.
Hey, what's going on?
Yo, ready to rock.
Hey, so we came across this story about this Chester County couple who used to restore comic books, but they ended up getting sued by CGC. Well, after 8 years, they won a $10 million defamation suit, and they're putting some of the comics that they worked on, that they've helped to restore, on the block. So I'm here with the guys to talk about, like, yo, wow, I mean, can they do something like this? Can you restore a comic basically to what it was before? Did CGC have a right? Not even a right, but was it something that CGC needed to do to fight them? Or is it we like, hey, let the market do what the market got to do? So I'm gonna bring this over to my boy Cal. Cal, what's your take on this thing? It took 8 years to get resolved. That's another thing that sucks. What's your take?
If I'm understanding the lawsuit correctly, it was not about restoration. It was about the CGC was alleging that the books were fraudulent, that they were fakes. If I'm understanding this correctly. If that's the case, then yeah, you've got to prove that the books are fraudulent, and the jury's saying that they weren't. In terms of restoration, you'd have to go back like 80s, 90s up to a certain period where restoration was not looked upon in the same way that it's looked upon now. That's pre-CGC. A lot of people looked at restoration as a good thing. The comic was restored. It was fully intact. It looked beautiful. It looked like it just came off the spinner rack. No pun intended. Looked just like it just came. It looked like it was like the first day this comic book ever came across. Once CGC, however, started grading, that changed the whole outlook, because then it looked like you were a sucker. Like, oh, you thought this was a good book? Well, it was restored. Look, they touched this with color. They did this, the staple over here was reinserted. And so it became that this was a less valuable book, which for me is crazy, because you have certain books that are like 8.8s, they look beautiful, and somehow an 8.8 restored is worth less than a 4.5 in worse looking condition. But that did change the viewpoint of the market in terms of restoration. So with these books, if I'm understanding the lawsuit, it was that, and if I'm understanding correctly, they weren't even doing the type of restoration that they were doing in the 90s, where somebody might color touch a book to improve the overall cover because it's faded in an area. They were using techniques to pretty much just get this book to look the way that it should, even in the condition that it was in. So anything that they were doing was, for lack of a better word, going to be naturalistic. This would have been as simple as, hey, maybe there's like a grease pencil of 30 and I wipe off the grease pencil. That's not restoration, but it is making the book look as close to the way that it should look. Again, if I'm understanding this lawsuit correctly, if CGC is alleging otherwise, you got to prove that in court. And in court, they said, no, you guys are these guys are not doing that, and you're liable for the defamation that you caused them.
What's your take, Petey?
I'm all thing is, I recently saw a video they were restoring a poster and looking at the process and the care that goes involved into it. And I've heard the sentiment that Cal has said of turning the person into a sucker because, oh, look, they fixed this up, they replaced the staples. I've heard all that, but it's just for the pure enjoyment and keeping the book around for longer than ever. I understand there are definite heirlooms, but this is also a reading. This is also something to read. So to actually have actually have the original book restored, even though obviously that's what she has in hand is something that's restored in a in a sleeve with obviously saying that it was restored is a good thing in my mind. I think you shouldn't just have to put the books that are, is it 5.6, these classic books, and not put some care into it to keep it as is. If you want to keep, if you're the collector that wants it and not be fixed and keep as is, this is one you found, that's fine. But for people who want the restoration, go for it. That's the thing, and keep the negative thing connotation away from it because it's like at some point, if I had a whole bunch of sleeves of classic books that I had, I probably would break the sleeve open to read it at some point. So if you're going to get to that, it needs to be in hand at some point in time. So obviously you can't do that with Action Comics #1, but at the same time, the want to do that is definitely there. So I like the idea of it. I like the idea of it. I like watching the process. It seems really cool seeing them put so much care into the restoration, and I'd love to see that for the comics too. So I'm for it.
I mean, I'm glad you guys are saying that because in fine art, they it's kind of weird that this argument is even happening because in fine art you have the fact that some of the greatest works of art have all been cleaned, where it changes some of the looks. Some of it has been, restored. I think really the key thing is if the people are taking the care and the time to go over and they're authenticating it, that they're telling you that this is what's happening and this is what they did to make sure this comic could come back. I think that's a really, really good thing. I mean, I was just at Midtown Comics and they had, I think, a 4.0 of the first appearance of the Punisher. They had a 3.5 of Action Comics #1, I believe it was. No, no, not Action One Comics. The first appearance of Thor. Um, so I mean, and that was like, wow, a three. I mean, couldn't they fix it up a little better? I mean, I'll be afraid to even open up that comic in fear that it would just fall apart. I remember talking to a friend of mine. I said, "Come on, I mean, can they not get it?" So I'm all for the restoration as long as it's something that you are like, well, explain what's been done so people know that what you're getting. So if you really want to have that last crumbly piece of Action Comic #1, then say, hey, I never did anything, and this is what it is. And probably that may be more to you as a collector that this is how it remained. But I think a lot of people will say, you know what, let me get the restored version, even if it's 10% less or whatever, because it's a better view. You can look at it. It's going to last longer because new touches and stuff like that. I mean, we see this with all kinds of things from cars, from art, but I think it really is a good thing that it happens. But the crate 8 years for a lawsuit, 8 years.
Well, it's a
My
reflection
gosh.
on the comic book collecting community, because again, years ago, I thought CGC brought some very beneficial practices where it was no longer like if myself and PD are arguing over the condition of the book. I say it's a 9.8. He says it's a 9 point this. We go back and forth. So you have a third party, objective third party, and they're going to decide what the grade is right there. And if you're somebody who's looking for a specific grade, you buy that no problem. The CGC is the gold standard when it comes to that. I've graded and still continue to grade books with CGC. I have no problem with that. In terms of restoration, that is an issue for the comic collecting community. Not so much them. Fake books are one thing, but comic book guys tend to lean towards the paranoid side that somehow they're getting suckered or they're being screwed. So you come over and you go, oh, you look, I got this beautiful book, Silver Surfer #1. Look how nice it is. And the first thing somebody will tell you is not, oh, wow, that's cool. That's a really nice looking book. The first thing they'll go and tell you is like, oh, it's restored. Look right over here. You can see this. You can see that. And so what does that do? You feel like a chump. You feel like you paid too much money and somebody got over on you. Now you're looking to get your money back. But the whole idea is that book looks great. You still got the book, but that's part of the community. Because again, like what you said in fine art, if you have a Monet and they got to do stuff to make it look good, you're like, thank you. Thank you. Because if it doesn't happen, it's not going to hold up long period of time. Whereas with comic book, restoration just means fake. Restoration means you got took. Restoration means you're a sucker. And it's unfortunate because it is art. These are collectibles, and they aren't treating it like that in terms of the things that are normally accepted with art and collectibles. Did either of you see this video of an old Superman poster being restored from the
Yeah,
1950s?
definitely. Yeah, we can look
You
at
saw that one, right?
No, I didn't see it.
No, this is if I'll send it to you. There's one with it's a poster for Superman versus Atom Man, large poster, one of those movie posters you would used to see in the subway. And they had to open it up. Looks bad. They got to flatten it out. They got to steam it. It's chemically clean. They have they're painting in certain areas of it to get the color back. And when it looks at it, it looks 100%, 200% better if such a thing is possible. For a comic guy, they would rather have it in the ratty condition rather than you say, hey, look, this has been restored. Look how nice it looks. So for me, it's insane. It's insane. It looks so much better. And the art and the time that has to come in there with it too. But what they're really saying is that they don't want a book unless it's in that condition. And that's the original condition. And that's very hard for a book from the golden age, silver, even from some of the copper age books where the quality of the paper and the covers are better. I mean, the books that they print now, forget about it. Those books would survive in a tsunami, with the cardstock paper and everything, or the metal covers or the foil covers. Totally different thing than what you had before. But in some of those cases, the restoration is necessary. And then in other cases, I look at the restoration, and I'm trained at doing this, and it's hard to really identify like what exactly is the restoration here. And then when I look, it's like, oh, wait a minute. There were like 3 little spots here, and they colored those spots in to make the cover look even. That's restoration, and that drops the grade. So, I'm not the person who decided to be a third party, but a lot of guys don't even understand what the restoration is. They really just think it's fake. And so they turn up their nose at it. And mind you, this was not something that they turned up their nose at before. A restored book would have been accepted as a high value comic book before like the early aughts and CGC became the gold standard for grading.
Now, I have this thing that Cal was talking about. So you see
Yeah.
what they started with.
Yeah, I see the video.
Our client purchased this poster in 1967 when he was 17 years old for only $25. He lost track of the poster when he moved for college until about 5 years ago when it was rediscovered in his mother's attic. 6-sheet movie posters are typically printed in 4 panels, and because each panel is printed separately, it's common for the image to not line up perfectly. It's also common for each panel to be a different size. Before we get started with the process, each panel is laid out to determine the placement and anticipate if there will be any misalignments we have to plan for once we start mounting the panels together. Now we are ready to wash the poster. Using filtered water and a mild detergent, impurities in the paper are removed and the paper fibers are relaxed. Sheets of Mylar are used to support the paper while it's wet, allowing us to handle the poster safely for this process. Any tape that is reversible with water is also removed at this time. Fully reversible adhesive is applied to the back side of the panel. The panel is then carefully adhered to the stretched canvas frame lined with acid-free paper. With the first panel mounted, we repeat the washing and mounting process for the remaining panels and torn pieces until the entire poster is linen backed. Given the size of this poster, this part requires an extra pair of hands to get each panel lined up as closely as possible and mounted together. Once the poster completely dries, it is prepped for restoration. During restoration, the artist uses a variety of materials, including water-based paints, colored pencils, and archival markers. These materials are layered in various combinations to replicate the original texture, color, printing style, and finish. Atom Man vs. Superman was released in 1950, starring Kirk Alyn, the first actor to portray Superman in a theatrical serial. This paved the way for later TV and film adaptations, including James Gunn's recent Superman release featuring David Corenswet 75 years later. Unlike a standard feature film, this was a 15-chapter serial shown weekly in theaters. After the restoration dries, the poster is carefully removed from the frame, and a 1-inch linen margin is trimmed around the edges. This poster has made countless cameos across our social media over the past year, and we have gotten so many questions about it. The client was so happy with how this poster turned out, and we are thrilled to finally share this restoration project with you.
Wow.
Again, for the comic collector, they want before.
It looks so much better, bro.
Yeah, they're not concerned with that. Mind you, it's exactly what Mars says. If you know, I know, without giving too much away, I know Mars, dabbles in fine art, but we both know, like, hey, if you had a Van Gogh or a Monet and it looked like before, and you got after, you would be ecstatic. You'd be like, my goodness, look at this. This is beautiful. This is great. And with the comic collector, like, trash. You messed it up. What is she? Oh, you drew on it? No, forget about this, man. You're trying to screw me. You're trying to screw me, man. Like, no, you have to. But that is the other problem, where comic books are not looked upon as genuine collectibles. They're not looked upon as literature and art. They don't buy them for the stories anymore. They buy them for the art. And even then, the art has to meet this certain criteria. It's also the same thing where CGC grades a book anywhere from 0.5 to 10. You would think that anything that's like a 9.2, 9.4, 9.6, anything leading up to a 10 would get you money. And the magic number is 9.8. People will pay hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for a 9.8. And if you go one grade lower, 9.6, sometimes you're lucky if you break even on your costs, because they have put all the money. It's literally, it's like golden ticket. It's so weird. It's one of the reasons I don't grade for selling anymore, because it's that you'd have to be out of your mind. If you have a high value book like Amazing Spider-Man 129, well, if you grade it and you get anything under a 9.8, well, good luck for what you paid on it in terms of the grading, pressing, cleaning, and the cost of the book. You may not be able to make your money back, because guys have got this all or nothing mentality when it comes to comic books in terms of their pricing. The only thing that should be of value is a 9.8. Anything else, hey, you take whatever money I give you. It's really weird when it comes to comics. And it's still art at the end of the day.
So I should just basically get some cash and buy out all those. Like I was just telling you, the first appearance of Punisher, it was 3.5. The first appearance of Thor, and then take it to these guys and say, "Yo, can you like restore this for life? And make it better."
I don't know if these guys are your guys.
No, I'm saying the young lady from Chester, Pennsylvania.
Oh, the Myers?
The Myers, yeah.
Yeah.
And say, yeah, I'll give you half.
with the more expensive books, especially the ones that don't look nice, yeah, I would definitely do that. I mean, I think I had an issue where I had a book and it was graded and it looked so nice, but it was graded a 3.0. And for the life of me, I could not understand why. Could not understand why this book, was a 3.0. Inspect it. They're saying there was foxing. I'm looking and I'm like, I can't find the foxing. I just can't find it at the end of the day. Foxing? Maybe this was What's a miss. Foxing is like these little dots, and they usually come from air exposure over a long period of time. So the book might have been kept, because of the type of paper and where the book was kept, it starts to like have these little dots on the paper, like a little fox trail or something, if you will. So I couldn't, you couldn't find it. And for the life of me, I'm thinking, man, I should just crack this thing open and sell it as is. This looks that good. So it's like, I can't understand where is the flaw at the end of the day. And if I showed it, so it got to a point, I was showing it to people like, hey, look at this. Would you believe this is a 3.0? And everybody's like, no, you would never believe this is a 3.0. But somehow And this book was fully intact. It was fully intact, full color. Okay, good on the back, good on the bottom, spine, spine beautiful, staples attached, no rust. And somehow it's a 3.0 for Foxy. And I'm like, somebody had to make an error. But if I crack it and sell it, then it's like, oh, well, you didn't tell everything you knew about the book. So that of course would be a problem. But if I keep it as is, I gotta get 3.0 money for a book that doesn't look like that. And then the worst thing is that guys don't know how to grade. So then you'll get a guy telling you that that book that you have is a 3.0. Why? Because this one's a 3.0. Look at it. And you're like, there's no way. There's no way that's a 3.0. Look at how, look, and then you have to show them, look at all these other 3.0s. It doesn't match up with this one. So it's just a weird thing it's a weird thing with the hobby. Grading hasn't necessarily improved overall knowledge. Maybe in another 20, 30 years, guys have more of an appreciation for it. But in terms of grading. But until that happens, I just don't. I press books. I may buy graded books for myself, but grading a book in order to make a profit on it, no, I stopped doing that a while ago.
So, but here's a question, and probably PD, you can answer this one. I go out, I buy this guy, and this guy is like, "Yo, it looks beautiful. It's a number one or something." And I'm like, "Wow, this is really good." And I get charged. The guy's like, "Yo, this is what the charge is going in the book or whatever." And you spend $10,000. You're like, "All right, cool, this is fine." But then you come home, you decide, "Hey, I want to go sell it to someone else." And this guy's like, "Oh, I took a look at CGC, and it's only $5,000 you're gonna get for this." You know, is does it really is that a legitimate thing? You know, it's like, how can I explain? Like, I know, like, there's some people who do vintage cars, right? And they're like, if you're gonna do a vintage car, you have to put the original stuff in it, right? While others are like, no, you can have the new car, you can have that old car, but you can update some of the stuff. The engine can be updated till now. You can do all this stuff, and it's going to change the price, but naturally, but it's still, you can do that. While others are like, there's no way in hell that can happen. Do you feel that you've been cheated? Or is it just that they have to
I buy
explain what they're
a
doing?
restored comic book for ten
Yeah.
thousand, and they say I'm like I can only get 5,000, or say comic
Let's say
one
yeah.
thousand. I only get 1,000 because it's restored. I don't think it shouldn't work like that, but it sounds I wouldn't get, I would say you wouldn't even get half. You go to Walt Flanagan, he was it Kevin Smith's friend, and say I'll give you I'll give you 100. Like, no, what about you got Detective 27 restored, and you bought it for 10 grand, and they're like, I'll give you 700.
Holy crap.
It's like criminal, and then they go
Holy crap.
involved. But other thing is the hard part is when the layperson buyer, and which calculus to talk to that to the retailer, someone who sells regularly. There's different prices. Customer price is not comic book seller price. They're like, we take that down immediately. We cut it in half and then buy a third right after that. So just in my opinion, but which I don't think is right though, especially with something that's a classic that's been helped out.
Interesting. All right. So hey, gents, if there's anything else,
No, just good seeing that Superman poster video.
it's cool.
Hey, again, I'm a big advocate. If you have a good book, grade it, if only for the preservation. I think that's really what grading should be about for the most part. Not so much, hey, I got this 9.8. Now I can come over here and sell it for big bucks. You got a nice book. Like myself, I have a copy of Incredible Hulk #2, first appearance of the Incredible Hulk, in green skin. I have a graded copy. I just want it preserved. I want to know that if, God forbid, something should happen, this book is going to stand the test of time, because it is a key issue at the end of the day. I think you should definitely tilt more towards that and have a reevaluation of what it means to restore a book. Restoring a book is not a trick. Restoring a book is not fraud. It is restoration of art, very much in the same way that we saw with the poster, or we see with paintings, or we see with statues. It is very much in that particular manner, and it will elevate the overall hobby of comic book collecting if you look at it that way, because that's the accurate way to look at it.
So last question. Do you have to tell someone the comic book has been restored?
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Okay.
If you don't know that the comic book has been restored, that's something else. If you're like me and you can identify restoration and you know it's restored, you have to be upfront with the person that it's been restored. If they're not concerned about it, fine. Okay. But it shouldn't be that, because that's when you are tricking somebody, to be quite honest. When this person is walking away thinking one thing about the book and you know it's not true, that's dishonest. You don't do that. But you can, without a doubt, I have no problem telling someone, no, look, right over here, you can see the restoration, or you can see here where the spine. There's something that was done in the 70s that a lot of guys aren't aware of, where if you look in a book, you might go to the centerfold and you'll see tape there at the centerfold. You'll see, and the tape has been there for a long time, so it's oxidized. So you'll see it, and a lot of guys will think, oh, they got the tape there. That means that the spine was falling out. So this is a restored book. What had happened years before that, there was an article by Stan Lee and another one by Dan Rosa, and both was telling like, hey kids, if you want to keep your books together and you don't want to worry about the spine, falling out, take action now. You can get magic tape, tape it over the spine to keep the staples in, and you won't have to worry about the spine going loose. So a lot of times when you see that, it's in reaction to the advice kids were getting to preserve their comics. So when I see it, I'm able to recognize that, like, oh, this was a kid who probably read that, or somebody else who read it, and they put the tape there to preserve the spine, because a lot of times these things would fall out from reading. And this was to preserve the book, not to restore it, not to trick somebody. This was an act of preservation, in lieu of something happening. But the average person doesn't know that. So when they see it, they're like, oh man, this is junk, this is this. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that book. But it would be harder to sell it to someone because they think something is wrong with it. But when I see it, I go and I can, even when I explain it, it's like, yeah, you're just spinning some story. At the end of the day, I'll find one without this particular thing in it. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with that book. And for me, it's more a bit of history because it shows you what the kids were doing at the time with their books and what were the popular trends. The same way, if you go to the 80s, you'll see a lot of signatures were inside of the book, not on the cover, because people didn't want to ruin the cover art at that time. And so they would have, look, you'll find signatures from everybody, Stan Lee, and they would be on the interior of the book. When I see that, I'm like, okay, I know the time period for these signatures. So you do want to be upfront, but you also want to know what it is too. I can tell the difference between restoration to make something look better than it is, and preservation based on the time period. So those are things that you do want to keep in mind.
Well,
Okay, cool.
I got a question. Have someone tried to sell you a restored book as saying it's as is, no restoration?
Yeah, once or twice, yeah.
What's that?
Yeah. I know what restoration looks like though. So
Okay.
I did try to sell a book to somebody once, and his friend came over. I don't know if this was like a tactic to try to lowball the book, but the first thing he savaged that book. He was like, it's restored. Look, there's color touch here, and there's this. And I looked at this guy, I had to control myself from leaping at his throat because it was so, I was just like, I was like, what are you doing? And another guy had to come over and say, there's no restoration. There's no restoration. He's like, you could tell if there was restoration from this or from that, but it totally ruined the sale. It totally ruined the sale because the guy no longer had confidence in the book based on what his friend said. And anything that I say is just going to look like I'm trying to explain away a bad book. So that was like only thing that I really had to deal with. But otherwise, if it's restored and I recognize it or somebody tells me, I'm like, hey, it doesn't matter, because to be quite honest, the guys who, if it's a good book, the guys out there who are willing to spend money, they tend not to care about these things if you're upfront, if it looks good, and they have an understanding of it better than the fly-by-night comic book collector, if you will. The guys who are going to spend $2,000, $3,000 on a book are not the guys looking to save money on a $10 book and haggle. Those guys understand what they are looking for. They know what it is when they get it. If it's restored, they can tell preservation. And to be quite honest, a really nice looking copy of Batman #1 original, even if it's restored, is still a great looking copy of Batman #1. They're not really going to care too much.
Got it. Okay, well, thanks. Hey, gents, if there's nothing else, we're gonna close this thing out.
Yeah.
If you like what you hear, please comment. We love to hear your comments. We love to talk to you guys. Give us a thumbs up. Spinnerack.
We
We're
are
out.